This material is made available to you by or on behalf of the University of Melbourne under Section 113P of the Copyright Act 1968. It may be subject to copyright. For more information, visit the University Copyright website.
The enrolments for all the workshops and see if we can squeeze them in. Yeah, fair enough. Coming in quick. Right, we've got power. Okay. Right, so final lecture for Embedded for 2019. So, subject summary. That's probably what I'm here for. Exam preview, that's probably what you're here for. So this is going to be the outline. I want to fly you over the subject again to give you the macro picture of everything again, right? We've sort of been microscopically going through lectures. Talk a bit more, remind you about the final report. Feedback is a two-way street. So I'm going to mention a bit about feedback to you and feedback to me, because that's important. Then the big one, I'll go through the exam, give you some ideas about what may be on there or what may not be on there. And then resources, so what can you use to study? We know the exam is a long time in the future, so you can start looking around for resources early. Okay, so back in lecture 1, I should change this now. It should be farewell, not welcome. So farewell from... I got really lazy. I didn't even copy the slide. I just copied the slide. So farewell, right? What have you learned? So hopefully by the practical side of things, you've learned how to design or wrestle with a microprocessor-based electronic system, i.e. the Kabuki, right? So you did design, implementation, testing, documentation, and there was probably a lot of looping between those three parts and maybe not so much documentation because that's probably going to happen with the report. Okay, so, excuse me, you can read all this stuff, that's copied again, but what was really important was you got, in terms of the workshops anyway, you got exposure to standard software tools. And you found, even with very expensive packages like LabVIEW and all that sort of stuff, there are bugs, there are weird idiosyncrasies, Eclipse, it just doesn't work half the time, etc. And that's what's out there, and that's called legacy. Sometimes you go and work at a company and you've got to actually use that stuff and you can't choose what you use. So that was your project, obviously, but there was no brain. There was a brain on there. And you've learnt how to get around fixed obstacles, ramps, cliff edges. Luckily, I didn't do the other options that were on here. One of them was holes, and there was a couple of other ones as well, which we didn't get into. I tried to keep it simple. Now, as you noticed, the Kabuki is a embedded system, but it's part of a cyber-physical system, right? By bumping into things, it's interacting with the world, and the cyber part is working out what to do when it does bump into things. And hopefully, this was in the first lecture as well, we've opened a can of worms at least with this subject, that you've realised that with IoT and all, I hate that term, but IoT, it's opened up a can of worms in particular because we have the physical side of things now. Computer scientists like living in isolation, right, in their parents' basement, working away, coding stuff, but no longer, right? Now with embedded stuff, it's always interacting with the physical world. Sensors, gathering data, actuating stuff, whatever. So it's not just the so-called IT anymore, it's the meshing of the two worlds. And that immediately brings up all of those contradictions there. In isolation, coding on a perfect computer in a perfect world, a lot of those things don't exist, but now they have to, okay? And it's inherent contradictions all over the place. But as we might have sort of been alluding to in the last couple of lectures, that the paradigms of programming and paradigms of analysing things in mechanics and physics and stuff separately have evolved over time independently. But maybe we need to think of something in the middle rather than trying to bolt the two things together. Okay, so in particular, we're looking at reachability and reliability. We're looking at problems with multi-threading of things, right? We don't have a real good model for that. Maybe we need to rethink the way we model it. So that's a real-life bubbling research area there. I also showed this as well, that this is the future. Cyber-physical systems, embedded systems, whatever you want to call them, are going to be at the forefront of most of these economically disruptive technologies. And I gave you dollar amounts on some of these things here, and it was staggering, the value of these things that are going to be heading off into the future. Okay, Endeavour is tomorrow. So if you are thinking of going to Endeavour, I urge you to go. Have a look at how some of the projects that you'll see for final year or capstone students project onto these areas here, and I'll guarantee most of them tend to project really well onto all these things. All right, so this is the future. Now, I want to just point out again that I did change the title on this slide. I put was in there, put it in the past tense. I do want to once again iterate that this subject is not just about hacking, okay? The lectures were not about hacking. Maybe you hacked the Kabuki to pieces, but it's about a principled approach to it. Anyone can follow a YouTube tutorial about programming an Arduino and going and buying one off the shelf and connecting the wires exactly as they say on the YouTube video and program it. Then it doesn't work, you got no idea. Okay? So we had a really principled way of building up the theory about how you design automata, right? So machines with discrete dynamics, and analyse them properly, not just hack them together and if they don't work, try and find another YouTube video that shows you how to debug it, okay? And what I'd like to kind of highlight here is that the hacking stuff is for low-level people. And I don't mean that any disrespectful, with no disrespect. You guys are, at number one in Australia in terms of, universities, and we're in the top 30 in the world, No, in all seriousness, universities are moving away from master's level students sitting there soldering stuff in the lab, for $20 an hour sort of stuff, right? You guys are master's level students. You guys are the ones directing the operations of those people who are just tech people. We employ tech people here. They don't have to have a master's degree to be a tech person, okay? Or maybe a master's from RMIT, right? Because that's all it's worth. No, just... Okay, no, I can qualify this. I'm very good friends with the professor from RMIT. No, I'm in all seriousness. And he says he doesn't like the fact that they've added U to the end of it. So it's now actually technically RMIT University. He says it should never be a U. Right? We are not a U. We're not a university. Anyway, so yeah, he doesn't like it where he works. Okay, so and once again, liken it to mechanical engineer. If you're going to be a mechanical engineer, which hopefully you're not because you're doing embedded systems, but seriously, if you're a mechanical engineer and you're designing the engine for a car, right? You design the engine, right, maybe in a CAD program, you then don't go and cast the iron block or whatever and the alloy heads and all that. You don't go and do that, right? You go and send the design off to someone to do that, a technician to do it, right? Likewise with this subject, okay? You're the ones designing the FSMs or whatever and planning it all out, showing it works, proving verifiability and all of that, and then someone goes and implements it, okay? So this is a really important point, right? The problem with courses that teach the hacking side of things, the technology changes. Subject I did 10 or 15 years ago, all that technology is so old school, no one teaches it anymore, right? But the principles are the same underneath. I wish I'd learned the principles rather than just learning machine code, right? It's useless now. No one needs to know it. Okay? So technology will change. Hopefully the stuff that you've picked up underneath, right, underneath the technology, forget about C, forget about LabVIEW, the stuff under there is what you take on to the future because things are going to change, particularly as we kind of move forward in that paradigm of putting cyber and physical together in a better way. All right, so, oh good, I took that embarrassing photo out. Right, so where did we go? Where did our journey start, right? So we followed the text. The text is a very good book. It's written by a couple of people who are experts in embedded systems. And if you want to know the track, right, we followed the track through here because we needed this stuff early on to learn about sensors, actuators, how input-output work. Some of you mightn't have... some of the stuff might have been familiar, some of it might have been new. Then we went up to here. We went down this track. And then we went down here, and finally we went down there. So we followed it in a bit of a roundabout way. But looking at it from a top level, you can see, sort of makes sense. Well, we're following the arrows, right? The arrows tell you what you need in order to study the next part. All right? Yeah, obviously we ended up down here. So that's a good indicator. Oh, sorry, I lied. We didn't do hybrid systems. So that's not examinable. So chapter 4 can be ruled out. Okay, and that's why it's a very structured approach. Modelling, design, analysis, blah, 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 all that. Excuse me. Right. So I want to talk a little bit more about the assessment to come, feedback for you, feedback for me, final exam, and a few other small things we have to finish off. So just a reminder that final report is due on day 1 of the exam period, 6 p.m. There might be a bit of a soft limit there, but don't try it. Okay, so 6 p.m. is what it will be. 5 minutes grace sort of thing. That's okay. Yes, there's a tight marking turnaround. I'm going to put the demonstrators through hell on this, that they're going to try and mark these things as soon as they get them, basically. So I'll already pre-allocate who's marking what amongst our team of people, and we'll try and get that feedback back to you as soon as we can. Okay, so maybe in start of week 2 of the exam period, we could get the marks back with the feedback and everything. So after the end of that week. Just also a reminder that no matter what your robot does this week, and I've seen a few things already, it's not going to preclude you from maxing out your mark for the report, okay? Right, so it failed dismally. That gives you a lot of stuff to write about in the report and fill up that 20 pages, and then we can see some insightful stuff. Hey, that's good. That's what we want to see. all right? So don't think that you're immediately going to fail the report because your robot failed, right? That's just an outcome thing. This is more about the why and the how. Okay, so feedback for you. So hopefully you've been given enough feedback. Now, the workshops, so pre-lab exercises and in-class tasks, they should finally be marked by the end of this week. I know the pre-lab stuff was a bit slow. There was just issues distributing it all and all of that. The in-class tasks were basically you saw what happened on the day, so you should know what your mark is, and that's available on LMS. But these things here, the assignments were individual, and they were individual for a reason. So you can't hide behind team members. Okay, so assignments 1 and 2, already marked, you've got that. Assignment 3 marks, I'm going to put the solutions up in the next 24 hours. I've already written them, but I've got to put them up. And will be available. I've got to put them up, but I have written them. And the assignment 3 marks will be released soon as well, okay? So you get the solutions before you get the feedback. Okay, final report feedback. And lastly, practice exam. So this subject has a very new structure to it. So there are no past exams, but that doesn't matter anyway because the old version of the subject never released the exams anyway. So there's just no history going back a long way of this subject. So I have gone and written a practice exam. It is pretty much the same length, same structure, almost the same question breakdown in terms of topic areas as the final exam. Now, I was hoping to release it this week. But, yeah, there is a but. Now, the but is that I wrote it on the weekend when I was sick, and I went to the doctor and everything, and I had tonsillitis, actually, believe it or not, which is pretty serious. And stupid me came into work and just kept working and everything. So I have checked. I'm still suffering from it, but anyway, that's another story. So I've checked the exam, and I went and added up the marks, and it was like 117 marks, and it should have been 100. So if I couldn't add up the marks properly when I'm writing the exam, the practice exam, sorry, the full exam's ready, I need to go over the questions just to check them to make sure they're just not unsolvable and that my solutions are correct. Okay? So it's close to me. I just need a clear head to actually go over it properly again. So that's done. And then full solutions. So do people want full solutions for the exam or just numerical answers? What do we want? Can I do both? Both. Can I just highlight the answer? Okay, so sorry. All right, trust me, I'm not contagious either with this. Apparently I'm beyond the contagion period. And I said to the doctor, I said, is there any risk of me infecting students? And the doctor, it was a woman doctor, she said, how did it go? She said, no, not unless you share drinks with them. I'm like, who shares drinks with their students? I don't know, it's weird. Odd. But anyway, seriously, I'm not contagious anymore. So, all right, if I'm going to do that for you and get all those full solutions out to you, you need to do one thing for me and go to the web and please complete the subject SES. There's a hurdle requirement on the SES. Yes. The hurdle requirement is a certain response rate, and once it gets above the response rate, I will then do more stuff for you. So I will then get all the solutions out to you and everything, okay? Now, just like in normal university subjects, we won't tell you what the hurdle is. The hurdle's just kind of there. But please, bump it up above the hurdle in terms of response rates, and I'll do that for you. So it's not much effort to get a lot of return. Okay, sorry. Right, so this is probably what you want to know a bit more about, okay? So Final exam, it's closed book. It's way into week 3 into the exam period. It's a hurdle requirement, so you've got to pass the exam to pass the subject. You are allowed university-approved calculators. Now for engineering, that means the old Casio FX81 and the FX100. I don't think the 100 is going to help because there's no complex numbers so far as I know in this subject. Is it 82? Sorry. I'll mention a side effect of taking painkillers for my throat and stuff means I'm somewhat delirious at times. So it's either of those. Don't worry, it's on the front cover of the exam. Past exams prior to this year cover different material. Well, you know that. And you know that, I don't even think they were released to the library, so it doesn't matter. Okay, questions about the exam?
Can we bring cheat sheet?
Closed book means no cheating, right, or no cheat sheets, okay? Honestly, all formula that you'll need will be provided unless it's an algorithmic thing, right? Algorithmic, what does that mean? RMS, EDF, if those acronyms mean anything to you, can't provide the formula for that. So you've got to know what to do with those things, all right? Question, yeah? I'll put a slide up at the end that will go through the best way to read through the subject. All right. Yes?
Doctor, do we have any questions that require coding skills? Or that require you to write a code? Or is it like a code is given and then you try to explain?
All right. That's a really unexpected question, actually. I'll say no to the former and yes to the latter. So you don't need to explicitly write code, but you may need to analyse code that's given to you. Okay? Any other questions? Because we're going to go into a little more detail in a minute. So that's the front cover of the exam. It is 82, sorry. Oh, yeah, it is 82. So if you've taken ADEC with me, it's exactly the same structured exam, meaning I actually use exactly the same cover, but I just changed the subject number and stuff. There are 7 questions, and they're all nice even numbers. I hate odd numbers, except for 7, which is a good number. But all of these are the real proportions of the questions, okay? So there are 2 large questions, 3 and 4, and the rest are about 12 or 10 out of 100. Total is out of 100. The exam is double-sided, but on the back side is blank page, okay? If you understand what I mean? So you're only ever writing on the odd pages, okay? You can do your rough work on unprinted sides. All good. Okay. 19 pages. Sounds long, but I've heard of other ones that are like double that length, so nothing to worry about there. All answers on the paper, please. It doesn't necessarily say that here, does it? But please, all answers on the paper. No script books whatsoever, okay? There's more than enough space. Okay, so let's go into details of what's on the exam. That first 12-marker question, guess what it's on? It's on sensors. Big part of embedded systems, right? Reading data from the real world. It's a multi-part question. And on the practice exam, I've got a similar styled question, and it actually is question 1 as well. So it's very similar. So, in terms of reviewing, go to chapter 7 in the textbook. It's quite a light-on chapter. And you need to know the following terms. What does SNR stand for? Signal noise ratio. Precision dynamic range of a sensor. Be able to calculate those things. Okay? There's not really much more that I can say about that question, to be honest. There's a very similar one on the practice exam. Question 2, 10 marks. It's the smallest question of all. What's it on again? Continuous dynamics. Okay, so it's early on in the book. Is that chapter 2 or chapter 3 in the book? Did I stuff that up? It is chapter 3, isn't it? Continuous dynamics? No, sorry. Sorry, that's 7 and 2. I told you. Blah. Chapter 2, yes. So continuous dynamics. So continuous time systems, differential equations, integration, that sort of stuff. In particular, I'm looking for you to be able to model a system using actor models of things. Okay, so given a physical system, the rules of how the physical system work, i.e. physics, can you construct an actor model from it and do something with that? Okay, so it's a multi-part question again. It's only 2 parts to this, I think, this one. Any guess what question 3 could be on? It's the big one. Not that. What on? Dynamics? Discrete dynamics. That sounds pretty good, actually. But in particular, focus is going to be on state machines. So, who doesn't love state machines? Seriously? Composition of state machines. Okay, so concurrent composition, that might mean hierarchical state machines, that might mean feedback. And feedback opens a can of worms there as well. Well-formed, constructive, that sort of stuff. Be able to flatten out a concurrent composition or a feedback composition to flatten it in terms of an equivalent flattened state machine. The old favourite, there may be non-determinism in there. Don't get hung up if there's non-determinism. If there's a non-deterministic state machine in the exam paper, I can't use red arrows in the exam paper, but it will clearly be stated if it's non-deterministic, and you'll be able to see there'll be 2 guards that could possibly both be true at the same time. Okay? It's multi-part. They're all multi-part, aren't they? Yeah. Okay, it's all going to be multi-part, but this one's multi-part. It goes 3A part I, 3A part 2 I's, etc. So it's nested like that. Okay, so there's a lot to cover, and that's why it's worth 22 marks. Any questions about that? I will just say if you have to draw an equivalent flattened state machine or something like that, you have to follow the rules that we've been using in this subject, okay? Preemptive transitions, history transitions, whatever. You have to label it in the proper way. Is there anything else I can add about this one? No, maybe this one. Right, so this is the other big question, and it's on FSMs again, funny, but it also looks at LTL and simulations. So, propositional logic formulas, remember what F, remember what G, remember what X, remember what U mean. Remember which way these things, what those things mean. And also, as a hint, that's XOR. Okay, so if you've forgotten what XORing something is, it's plus with a circle around it. Yeah. They don't... That's not XOR, is it? No. Okay, so... simulation. Right, so that means you may have to, given a state machine, you may have to construct an equivalent state machine that simulates it or bisimulates it, or do an analysis to prove bisimulation. Okay, so that's that. Right, question 5, 12 marks. Does anyone want to shout out a topic and try and guess? We've got 3 questions to go. It was too easy. But there's an M word as well, multitasking and scheduling. So this covers chapters 11 and 12. And remember that scheduling is all motivated from threads and processes, right? Having to be able to have 2 tasks that need running with certain deadlines, right? And you've got to context switch between them, preempt them, whatever. So I don't expect you to memorise much, but please know those 2 algorithms. Rate meet scheduling and earliest deadline first. Now, you need to be able to draw these things as how they'll be implemented in time. So if there are multiple tasks, like in the slides, you need to show when they're being preempted, one's being preempted and one's being, or whatever, or how they're scheduled to run. Okay, so you need to be able to draw, and the axes will be provided for you, the 2 tasks, and if they are, preempted or something like that. Right, according to some scheduling scheme. So you need to be able to draw them as like rectangles in axes like that. I have given you axes, and I've given you a practice area to draw these things as well. I think this question's fairly easy for 12 marks, to be honest. 2 questions to go. Question 6, what do you reckon? What haven't we covered yet? Data hazard, security. 15, sorry. So reachability analysis and model checking. No surprises. It's a multi-part question. So you'll need to perform. Actually, this is a good point to this. You have to do a bit of composition as well. Right? So given a few FSMs, you're going to have to think about the composition, but don't do it because the state space will blow up. Okay? And why I don't want you doing that is I don't want you having, state space that's too big to work out what's going on. You'll need to do some symbolic model checking with that system. Okay? So by sort of looking at the various state machines, moving through them, but not explicitly forming the model, be able to do a search through there. You need to check a safety property. I'll spare you a liveliness one. You need to just prove or disprove a safety property. Okay? And normally, for state machines, a safety property means a particular state that the machine can be in. It shouldn't be in, and if it gets to that state, things are bad. Okay, so that's essentially what you need to do, a symbolic model checking by breadth first searching across the space. So what else can I say about this one? There's probably more text in this question than what the answer requires. It took ages to write it out and set it all up and explain how it all works, and the answer's not that difficult. You may need to do a trace analysis or something like that, or something to prove that the safety property is either violated or not violated. Okay. Question 7. What's question 7?
Security.
Correct? What else could it be?
Privacy.
Correct? What else could it be? It's the lucky dip question. It's only 12 marks. Okay, there are lots of parts to this question. These questions are more word style answer questions. Okay, so given a sentence, explain something, explain the benefits of something over something else, but it's drawn from virtually all parts of the course, right? That also means there could be memory stuff in there, caching, yeah, but not having to do a full analysis, but maybe just talking about different types of caching or how that affects performance, that sort of thing, okay? So this one you can't prepare for like as a targeted thing. It's there for those people who are very good at the course overall, can answer everything. You might be able to answer 1 or 2 questions, that's okay as well. Okay? So I'm not going to give too much away about that. It's multi-part. There's probably 6 parts to it. 2 marks each sort of thing. Questions? Are there any questions? Yes? Scaling or curving? I don't think I've ever, in more than a decade, scaled any exam or scaled any results overall. Never. Reason being, maybe I'm lucky enough that I've ended up with all big subjects always, so like the law of large numbers mean you get a bell curve. Maybe because the exams are written relatively nicely, that it's never all too easy, never all too hard. Don't know. Don't scale. You get what you get. What's that? So if anyone wants to know, the exam process is when someone writes an exam in our department anyway, multiple people review it, try and solve it, find out they can't solve it, other people. No, but they try and solve it, then they come back to me with feedback about issues that they might have. I tell them the solutions and they look at what they had, and we kind of iterate to get towards a nice, steady version of the exam. So through that process, you generally don't get really terrible exams unless the people who write them don't spend time writing them. It takes probably a week to write a good exam, a proper exam, not one that's just does dumb things, like just gets you to do computationally dumb things. It doesn't test the concepts. It does take about a week to do that, and that's a week full time, so it's like 40 hours to write an exam properly and solutions for it. So any other lecturer that tells you that they can write an exam in a day or something is lying. It really does take a long time. So there will be no scaling. That doesn't need to be. Honestly, I don't see any need for it. Okay?
Does one part need another part?
Sorry?
Does one question need the previous part?
Yeah, so all of these are multi-part questions, and where there needs to be, there will be consequential error. I'm pretty generous with that. Like even if you totally screw up part A, if for part B you can say, assuming that, ... and then just launch into it. Please don't choose trivial cases though. Okay, so if part A is get a value for something and then part B is use that value to calculate, don't just say, assuming the value for part A was 0, right? And therefore part B is 0 because it just multiplies, right? Don't do that. Assume 1 or something, or G or something, right? Something reasonable. Okay, so also with my marking schemes, just for those of you who haven't had me through ADEC, you can, even if you get the wrong answer, you can still get almost like 80% of the question right. If you've followed a process and you've got something mixed up, but the process is right and the numbers are wrong, you can still get 4/5 of the mark for that question. So this is not got the answer wrong, people die, slap you down. Engineers don't sit and do exams. Well, we have textbooks, we have the internet when we work out things, we can check things. You guys can't check in an exam, so it's unfair to hold you to that high standard. All right, what else? Is there any other questions about the exam that aren't specific? Yeah?
We have done 3 assignments throughout the semester. How will that be integrated to the exam?
Do you mean, do I use assignment questions on the exam?
No, like basically, like FSM, obviously we've done in assignments, and that is tested upon in the exam. But those concepts that
Yeah, so assignment questions are quite similar to the flavour of the questions here. That sort of style, yeah. You'll see when you see the practice exam how it's been written. That gave me... I did have a point to say, but I've forgotten. Right, so it was asked before how you're going to study for this subject. Well, the book is the be-all and end-all, right? Lecture slides are just stripped-down version of the book to sort of provoke you into areas of the book to go to, and that's all lecture slides should ever be, right? Any worked examples that are in the book, go through those, or go through any ones that we may have done in lecture. This one, so again, the practice exam, don't treat it as a resource to study from. Treat it as a test of your ability. Don't, when I release the solutions for it, don't sit down with the solutions and work from scratch, okay? I really want you to do the practice exam. I wasted a lot of time putting it all together. I want you to do it pretending it's the exam. Then you get the solutions you can mark yourself, so to speak, okay? Don't use it as a study tool. Oh, there might be a question like this, so let's learn how to do it, okay? It won't work that way. Okay, consultation sessions, I will announce, not until week 3 anyway, or you could email me directly. It's very hard to sometimes respond. I've had questions with FSMs and stuff, people writing to me. I can't really draw FSMs in ASCII art, so it's easier to come and see me where I can draw them out on the whiteboard. Yes, question?
Does the practice exams difficulty is pretty similar with the real one?
Yeah, just that the marks don't add up properly. Yes, it is. It's 7 questions, about the same length for each of the questions. Yeah, and even almost the same topics. Okay. Right, so, yeah.
I was wondering if any of the workshop stuff would be incorporated in the exam as well, like the Kabuki follow-up ones.
Yeah, well, you'll see from the practice exam references the Kabuki in at least one of the questions, so it's possible, yeah. Well, you spend so much time with it, you surely should know that you should be expert in it. Okay, so how are you going to study for the subject, right? Please treat the lecture slides just as pointers as to maybe what you understand and what you don't understand. And what you don't understand, go and look it up in the book. Don't just rely on the lecture slides, okay? They don't have all the info. They very well may have typos and stuff in there, right? At least the book has been vetted a bit more. Feedback from assignments, workshops, all that sort of stuff. But try problems yourself. The textbook still has problems in there. Give some of them a go. Come to me then and ask how to solve them if you've had a go. I'm not going to... There's 2 things I don't do when people come to me with problems. One, if they just say, I couldn't do this problem, and they don't show me any attempt at it, I don't help, right? That's just teach me, that's not right. And secondly, if you come for help, come to me for help, and we work through a problem, don't ever ask for the piece of paper that I'll write on, okay? Do you get that? No? So, don't come to me, sit there, and I'll explain something and draw it out and explain it all, and then say, oh, thank you, can I take that paper, please? Okay? Why? Because that, once again, you should be formulating that in your own words or your own style or whatever. Don't just, I've just written it out for you, take it away, right? To me, that's not doing anything. Okay, so, if you come to me for help, we work through stuff, write stuff down, I'll write stuff, I'll illustrate stuff, and you walk out with your own notes, right? Okay. 2 more things. Endeavour, please go tomorrow. It's important that you have a look at what the projects might be for the next year when you get into capstone. You might be inspired to propose a project of your own. Have a look at how many systems projects are cyber-physical. They're pretty much all of them. Okay, and the IT ones, well, they're just computers. They're just the cyber part.
Could you request
Where's what?
Where's the AE?
That? Australian Eastern Daylight Time or something? Daylight Saving Time? It's here. So 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. You'll see all the, where are we? You'll see all this stuff out on the South Lawn now, all the tents being set up. And there was a protest there today, which is all nice to see. Okay, so once again, I'm going to bombard you with this. Please, again, do the SES for the subject. We do take your comments seriously. And unfortunately, you know, so does the uni. No, the uni use the numbers as metrics and stuff, which is crazy, but please do it. And lastly, if I don't see you again until week 3 of the exam, hey, good luck. And see either, hopefully, come and see me because I'd like to see you. Won't be contagious. And I'll see you in the exam. Okay? Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed the subject.